get to our SMSF specialist. He'll tell us what's happening with Division 296, and Liam Shorte also here to discuss, talking about why missing a minimum pension payment got so much more expensive. Good to see you, Liam.
Good afternoon, how are you doing?
Very well. So we'll get to Division 296 in a bit, but if we missed, or someone missed a minimum pension payment, why did it get so much more expensive 3 days ago?
Yeah, because previously, if you missed a pension payment for a year, yes, the pension would have to restart on the first of the previous year. So if you missed your pension payment before the 30th of June, your pension would go back to accumulation as of the 1st of July last year. But previously, we were able to restart the pension on that 1st of July of this year, so that you only missed 1 year's. But now what the ATO are saying is that if you miss the payment for this year and you don't realise it until, say, March or April next year when your financials are completed, you can't restart the pension until then. So you can't have the pension start on the first of the year. So instead of losing 12 months of tax efficiency or tax exemption, you're losing up to 22 months. And there are some people who still haven't done their previous year's financials, so they're actually losing over 2 years worth of tax exemption in pension phase. So it's just the ATO, sticking to the letter of the law now rather than giving some flexibility. But it does mean that the people who used to just go and see their accountants, sort of 6 or 9 months after the end of the year, when all the statements had come in and they had all the tax statements together, they put them in January or February, and the accountant would finish it. That's too late. If you've missed your minimum pension, you've lost that tax exemption. So it's now even more important than ever that you check in June each year that you are making the correct minimum pensions for that year. So understand what your balance was on the 1st of July, this year, for example. On 1st of July this year, once you've got that figure for this one, make sure you take the minimum pension, and also take into account that the financials for the 30th of June won't have any new pensions that you start. So allow for any new pensions that you start during the year as well. And look, we got caught out ourselves. So I'm saying to people, always have a second set of eyes on everything. Even if you think you're the most meticulous person, we missed out on a minimum pension by $372. And that has caused an issue. So it's just one of those things where the ATO now are enforcing the law, and we just have to follow it. So what I'm sort of recommending to everybody is, 1, check your minimum pensions before the end of the year, but 2, have a new checkup with your accountant or your administrator before the end of the first quarter, before the 30th of September, and just make sure that everything did work smoothly. Check the bank accounts to see that the money did actually come out, because that's what happened in our case. We set up the payment to be approved, but the client went away on holidays and forgot to approve the payment.
Is it possible, Liam, to have sort of a second smaller pension, and how would that work?
Yeah, so with an SMSF or with any APRA fund, you can actually have multiple pensions. So what we often do, and we're often doing this anyway, setting up separate pensions for accounts that might have mixed taxable components, and we might have new money going in that's totally tax-free, and we keep that separate in a second pension. So often it's not a bad idea to have a smaller pension, that if something does go wrong where you just underpay by what we've done in this case, say $500 or a couple of $1,000, that you can sacrifice that smaller pension and say that missed payment was for that smaller pension in your SMSF, not your large pension. And that way you retain the tax effectiveness of the majority of your accounts.
Now, let's get back then to Division 296, because we've been talking about this for a while, and I'm sure you just heard our conversation there with Vanessa. Is your understanding that in the current form that we know, it will be coming in shortly?
Yes, it's going through. He's going to bulldoze it through. He's not listening. They're not taking any recommendations, so expect it to go through with probably some minor changes. There may be a chance of the indexation. But the unrealized capital gains, it's looking like that's the only way that they feel they can put it through without affecting the APRA funds. As far as commercial property, it's now an opportunity for people to review what they've actually got in their fund. And what we're starting to do is take advantage of the fact that you can now have 6 members in an SMSF. Okay, so multi-generational SMSF. So where the parents, that are, in some cases grandparents, are the ones with the big balances, and they may have over 3 million. we're getting them to withdraw the funds and recontribute them for their children and their grandchildren, so that over time, the balance or the ownership within the fund is spread across 6 accounts rather than just over 3 million in the 2 grandparents' accounts. It really takes a change in mindset. So a move from thinking of you and me as far as a couple to you, me, and the family. And for SMSFs are a long-term planning vehicle, so it's ideal for people with small businesses, especially those who've got commercial property, to think long-term, to think as a family, how do we develop and protect some of our wealth, because superannuation is a great way to protect wealth, but at the same time not fall foul of something like Division 296.
Yeah, so what does that mean? I mean, it will obviously have implications for estate planning, but what comes to mind first, Liam? Because this is all sort of fresh territory, isn't it?
Yeah, so look, I'll give you an example. So let's say a couple with 4 million each in super, with 2 kids and 2 grandchildren. So in a lot of cases, what we're saying is they each take out $1 million and they recontribute 360,000 for each of their children, and then some money for each of the grandchildren. That's backed by a loan to those children, that if anything happens to them, there's a binding nomination in the super fund to go to their estate, and that loan is repaid to the parents. So the money is always protected for the grandparents if something goes wrong. But again, it's a cultural thing. Aussies, Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Celtic, we're not great at sharing among families, but Australia's a very diverse nation now, and we do have a lot of cultures that do invest as a family, and this strategy really works well for them, because they see it as a way of not only passing some wealth to the next generation, but also training them in the value of the wealth and the value of investing long term, and in the value of taking some risk, but measured risk in the right entities.
Oh my gosh, and it's so good that we've got still enough financial advisors, hopefully, to get people through a lot of these changes, because boy, it boggles the mind sometimes.
It does. And with that in mind, and with what we saw with the cyber attack from Qantas this week as well, Liam, what sort of things should people be wary of from super funds that may look like phishing or scams?
Yeah, look, so there's a lot of spruikers out there, or people who are trying to get their hands on your honeypot of your superannuation. There is no free ride out there, okay? For me to take on a new client, it costs me between 4,400 and about 12,000, depending on how complex it is. So if someone's offering you a free health check, nothing is free. It's going to cost you one way or another. So just be very wary of anybody who's high pressure sales tactics, anybody who starts questioning your existing fund without actually understanding how that fund is done for 3 or 4 years, or 5 or 7, even better, and that they can show you a proper comparison and not just a projection of what they're recommending that you go into. Because I'm seeing all these people that have been moved to new funds, into model portfolios that they're promised the earth, and when we look down at it, everything's a projection. There's nothing to back it up. There's no history there to show that they can actually beat the actual fund that people are in at the moment. If you're in one of these processes where somebody is on the phone to you and they're saying, look, we can get you a free super check or whatever, you just need to speak to our people, ask them if they're licensed. If anywhere along the line someone's not licensed, you're being marketed to. Okay, you're being sold and somebody's paying a commission to somebody. Just, for me, I just tell people, ask your friends, go to advisor ratings or something like that, Google reviews, really check out the people that are trying to sell you. And one of the things is put the name in of the company plus scam or complaint into Google, just to have an idea of what's going on, or if anybody has had trouble with them in the past. Again, it really comes down to that. If they say, look, you just sign the documents and we'll walk you through it. The ATO now are trying to do everything they can. About 27 to 30% of new SMSF trustees, for example, the ATO are actually phoning them up and asking them, why are you going into the fund? Who's recommending the fund to you? Do you understand what you're doing? So the industry and the profession now is starting to come around and say, look, we've got to protect this for people, because people themselves don't deal with their super often enough. So somebody's got to step in, and that's got to be advisors. So like on my Facebook group, we've got about 7,000 people on there. This year, we've stopped at least 25 scams where people have just said, look, I've been offered this. Could you just look at it and tell me what you think of it? We're not, we're not lawyers, we're not experts, but in all of those cases, with a little bit of digging, it was just absolutely obvious that it was it was just not a good investment or a good structure for the people to go into.